Thank you for joining CMB Regional Center's webinar. Our event will be starting shortly. We'll be excited to have you all here today. We'll be allowing just another moment or two for our attendees who are just joining us to settle in. Hello to all of our attendees. I'm Andrew Dasovich, Global Market Specialist for CMB Regional Centers. I'm happy to be your host for today's event. On behalf of CMB Regional Centers, a warm welcome to all of you that are able to join us, and it's truly our pleasure to have you here today. We're delighted to present another event in our Coming to America series, What Immigrants Need to Know About Buying a Car in the United States. We hope you find tremendous value in our discussion and presentations today. The information that we're sharing today is for educational purposes and not meant to be taken as legal or directed advice. Today, we are happy to have our friend and regular guest in this series, Miss Dianne Stewart, President of Pathway USA. Diane is an expert in international relocation, which is the focus of her company, Pathway USA, as well. She and her husband, Bruce, have been able to assist over 1,500 families to successfully transition their lives to another country, and they've been doing so since 2006. Also joining us today is Mr. Kai Boyle, Vice President of CMB Regional Centers. Mr. Boyle has over 30 years of business leadership and management experience. Mr. Boyle has been involved in the EB5 industry since 2010 and is a frequent speaker in EB5 events. Mr. Boyle has been active in economic development throughout the past 3 decades. We're also honored to have our featured guest today, Leanne Shattuck. She's going to lead our main topic of focus today regarding what you need to know about buying a car in the United States. Leanne Shattuck is an automotive expert, entrepreneur, speaker, author, radio and television host, and also a race car driver. She's known around the world as the Car Chick, and she's been featured on numerous national radio and television programs. She's also the co-owner and chief Car Chick, a unique buying service that helps women get a great deal on a new or used car without the hassle and frustrations that come with traditional car shopping. Leanne is passionate about educating women about cars and empowering them to make informed decisions when purchasing, selling, and servicing automobiles. She's considered to be one of the top influencers of women in the automotive industry by Michelin, and she serves on the panel of expert women in the Professional Speakers Bureau for AskPatty.com. Today, we'll start out with Kai Boyle briefly speaking about who we are at CMB Regional Centers. Diane will then be discussing about how she and Pathway USA assist their clients in transitioning their lives to America. And then finally, Leanne Shattuck will be covering our main topic of the day, what immigrants need to know about buying a car in the United States. Following Ms. Shattuck's presentation, we'll look forward to an interactive Q&A session. We'll do our best to accommodate as many questions as time allows. And some of you have already sent in questions ahead of our event today, and thank you for those. So if those questions apply to our topics today, we'll start with those questions first, but we'll still encourage you to please ask questions in the Q&A button that's located in your controls for today's webinar. If your questions are very individually specific matters, we request that you please reach out via the contact information that we'll provide during our event today. And we'll try to do our best to accommodate those outside of the event. And then as a reminder, we'll be leaving your audio muted for the entirety of today's event. Thank you again for being here. And without further ado, Mr. Kai Boyle.
Thank you, Andrew, and welcome to everyone that has joined us today. And a special thank you to our guests, our presenters, Ms. Diane Stewart and Leanne Shattuck, who are going to spend some time with us today and share their expertise. Certainly delighted to have both of you ladies here today, and thank you for sharing your time, talent, and expertise with us today. Well, the reason that we are meeting here today is to talk about some of the aspects of coming to America and what immigrants need to think about, and some of the things that they should know or they should have in their toolkit before they arrive to the United States. And today I'm really excited in the fact that Leanne is going to share with us about the car culture in the United States. Many of you know that if you've looked at the United States and the call of the open road and the freedoms that come along with being an American citizen, or those that are a permanent resident in the United States coming to the United States, that the car culture is central to life in America. And so Leanne's going to demystify some of that for you and talk about buying a car and some of the important things that surround purchasing a car. And I'm really excited to have Leanne here and share that some insights with you today. So without further ado, let's get moving forward. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and it's going to be a fun morning. We're in the morning here in the United States. It's going to be a fun interaction here today. So let me introduce CMB and who we are. CMB is a regional center in the EB-5 program in the United States. That's the Immigrant Investor Program for the United States. Our history dates back when we were first authorized as a regional center in the EB-5 program in 1997. That makes us one of the oldest and most active, and by many accounts and by many attributions, the one of the most successful regional centers, if not the most successful regional center in the EB-5 industry. We represent the goals and dreams of more than 5,700 investor families. We have 4,900 of those investor families have already achieved their I-526 petition approval. That's the initial qualifying approval of the I-526 petition. We also have more than 1,400, and that number will change here very soon. We'll push past 1,500 I-829. That's the permanent green card petition approvals. We have a total of about $3.3 billion in EB-5 capital at work in the United States economy, creating jobs for American workers, which is the goal of the EB-5 program. And all of our projects from the very beginning till the current day have gotten 100% success rate of the approval of those projects at the I-924, the I-526, and the I-829 stages whenever they've been adjudicated by the USCIS. CMB has more than 50 staff located around the world. We speak some 15 different languages and various dialects, so we can speak with immigrant investor prospects from around the world in their native tongue to describe some of the aspects of the EB-5 program and answer their questions, oftentimes in their mother tongue. And we have investors from more than 100 countries, actually 102 countries, are investors in CMB's 74 EB-5 projects. If you'd like some additional information about CMB, there's the QR code. You can either reach out to us by email, that's www.cmbeb5visa.com, or send us an email, info@cmbeb5visa.com, or just scan the QR code there, and that'll take you directly to our website and into our information page. And we'd be glad to help you or your family or anyone you know, your friends, relatives, business associates who are looking to invest and become part of the United States system and become part of our culture here in the United States using the EB-5 program. We'd be glad to talk to you and share with you our history of success and our current project information for you to look at. So now when we look at CMB and who we are as a company, we were established on the simple premise that if the investor is successful in their EB5 pursuits, then CMB would be successful as a company. Now, when we take a look at that, the one aspect of that is the EB5 investment. And as I showed you, we've had investors who have been successful throughout our history. And that continues to this very day and will extend well into the future. But success in the EB5 investment is one aspect. But when we are looking at the success of a family holistically, and we're looking at it beyond the investment and the investment success, which is vital and important, and that's how the purpose behind a regional center is to provide those opportunities for families to come to the United States using the EB5 program. But looking at it holistic, well, what happens when they arrive to the United States? How do families plan for their arrival here at the United States? So an approval of an I-526 petition, which allows the family to move forward through their immigration pursuits, is just the beginning. It's absolutely the very beginning. So looking beyond that, when families come to the United States, CMB has started to look at, and actually has always looked at it in a more holistic fashion. How can we help these families to be successful beyond the EB5 investment? So that's why we started this Coming to America series of webinars and discussions with professionals and experts in the field on various aspects of American life. We've done everything from building a credit score to educating your children in the United States in the universities. We've talked about taxes and what is the American tax system and how do I understand the American tax system. Many of the investors have a good foundation financially. Maybe they're entrepreneurs in their own country and have been successful in that way. Well, when they come to the United States, they need to do some financial planning. How does that work in the United States? So we had a webinar on financial planning in the United States and doing some planning with a financial planning expert. We've also talked about the big move. Everyone that comes to the United States has got to move from their motherland or from the country, their home country, and come to the United States. How do you prepare for that? What about a container? What about shipping? What about packing? What about the movers? So we know that that's something that every one of the immigrant families is going to face. And we had a webinar to discuss that fact. We also talked about the legal system in the United States and tried to demystify the legal and the court systems in the United States. Everyone needs an immigration attorney to file their petitions with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services to represent them in that way. What happens when you land in the United States? What kind of an attorney do you need? There's all kinds of attorneys and a lot of specialties, and we worked through some of those specialties and what they are used for and why you might need those various specialties in those various categories, because we think that that's important as well. Remember, we've been looking at not only the success of the investors through their EB5 pursuits, but looking beyond. What happens when they arrive here? And what happens when they come to the United States, land at the United States, and start to assimilate in the culture here in America? So CMB has taken a look beyond just the success of the EB5 investor and their families through the EB5 pursuits, and we've looked to success when they arrive to the United States. Again, CMB, we were founded on one very simple principle by our founder, Mr. Patrick Hogan, many, many years ago. To this very day, everyone in this company works for the success of the investors and their families, because we know that when the investor is successful, then CMB will be a successful company. Not as a result of how much money we raise or how many projects we put onto the marketplace, but solely as the fact that when the investors are successful and their families are successful, CMB is successful as a company. So along with that, we've put forth these Coming to America series. It's a resource that's available to you. If you've signed and registered for today, which you have because you're already here, we'll be sure to send out a way to go to our YouTube channel so that you can access that information and you can watch each one or all of that catalog of various webinars with the experts that we've put on that will help to guide you and get you to thinking about some of those things that maybe you hadn't thought about before you come to the United States, so that when you land here, you'll be ready. Fair enough. Well, thank you again for joining us here today. And again, I would like to share with you another expert in what to think about preparing for your new life here in the United States, here in America. And Dianne Stewart, again, is one of those guests that we have had. She's been with us several times. She's got a whole wellspring of ideas, of experience, and she's very talented and charming. And so I'd like to turn it over to you, Dianne. Thank you again for being here today and sharing your expertise with us.
Good morning, Kai. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and it's such an honor to be part of this incredible series of webinars that we've done over the last many months. And this one is a real important one, and delighted to have Leanne here to take over and explain to us how to buy a car or a vehicle here in the United States. Preparing your new life in America. Once you've been exposed and put into the capable hands of CMB and your EB-5 petition is well on its way, that is the time before you even get here to start planning your move. And most people think, or many people think, that once they've got their visa in their passport, they can jump on a plane and start their new life in the United States. Well, that is probably the first mistake that many people make, because they just have done no pre-planning in order to make sure that their new life in America is successful. CMB can give you the keys to the door, but I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you so that you don't have all these roadblocks that suddenly pop up when you arrive in the United States and you, as we always say to our clients, you don't know what you don't know. But you learn pretty fast once you land here and you haven't done that planning. So a little bit about me. I relocated a family, my husband and two small children, 20 years ago from South Africa. And I landed in the United States in the beautiful city of Charlotte that I'm coming to you from today. And didn't know anybody, didn't have any family here, didn't have an infrastructure, didn't have a support system, didn't even have a bank account. And I had no idea what I didn't know. And I had to learn real fast. And so all of those experiences that I had over those years have gone into making it so much easier for my clients who come from all over the world. I have relocated people from Mexico, Italy, Johannesburg, Cape Town, London, Madrid, and even Australia and New Zealand. And so many families come to us because they have so many questions. They don't know where to start, they need some guidance, and we're here to help them. So that is really why I started Pathway USA, is to give people the background that they so desperately need before they come. And it's very important to use an experienced relocation professional, because so often people think that they have watched American movies, they've traveled here a couple of times, they've been to Disney World, they just think that they understand the way the US works. Well, I have news for you. It's a rude awakening when you get here and you have a real issue with very important things that you need to do and you just can't get them completed. So very important that you have a plan. So if we could move on to the next slide, Kai. To make this quite complicated process simple for you today, I'm going to be speaking about the 3 steps. There are 3 definite sections, 3 parts that you need to focus on. The first one is how to prepare for your new life in America. In other words, what to do while you're sitting in your home country, waiting, excited, eager to get moving. There's a lot of things that you can do in order to prepare for your new life in the United States before you get here. So that's the first step. That's the first part. The second part is when you actually arrive here, the first crucial couple of weeks when you land in the United States, in your new city, in your new home, and you need to settle in as quickly as possible to keep your life moving. And then the third part is actually living here, and what aspects of living in the United States go towards making it a success. And all of these 3 steps are crucial into your long-term success of living your American dream. So let's talk about the first step. The first step is most important while you sit in your home country. You need to decide where you're going to live. We take our clients through a detailed questionnaire of what is important to them. Are they coming to find work here? What kind of industry do they work in? Are they in banking? Are they in real estate? Are they in education? People have expertise, and so that can often dictate where they're going to live. Other important things are, where are your children going to go to school? Are they going to college? What kind of weather do you like? What kind of country are you coming to? What kind of culture do you like? Because in the 50 states in the United States, every single state has a different character, has a different culture, has different food. So you have an enormous choice of where you can settle in the United States. And so we guide you into making the right choice. Because if you make the wrong one and you're unhappy in the state that you're in, that can affect everybody. And it can affect your happiness and your success in this wonderful new country. Next most important thing that I'm going to mention, and these are three very important pieces, but there are hundreds of other things that you need to consider as well. But I'm just going to focus on these three important pieces for today's event. Most important is that you open a bank account before you get to the United States. And there's some very good reasons for this. First of all, in order to purchase a property, which is the third leg of this these first important steps before you get here, you have to have a bank account. And you have to have money in that bank account in order to purchase a property here. And at Pathway, we have, obviously with COVID, nobody could travel easily to the United States to open that bank account. And in the past, you had to be present in the United States to actually open a bank account. Well, we were able to find a fantastic bank in New York City with great internet access for our clients, and we can open that bank account without you even being in the United States. That way, you can start moving funds from your home country bank into an American bank in order to make an investment in a property. And the most important reason why you invest in a property before you get here is to establish the very, very important credit history that everybody in the United States is governed by, managed by, and controlled by to an extent. So you really do need to start establishing that credit score as fast as you can. And we assist our clients in doing that. We also can assist our clients in investing in a property and getting you a foreign national mortgage loan. So you don't need to purchase that property for cash. Very important in the United States, you keep your cash to make more money rather than put it into an asset that you can't access if you need that cash. So we have a way in order to help our clients access a foreign national loan using their home country's credit history, which is kind of an unusual and very valuable tool that we have for our clients. So we'd be happy to assist you with that as well. And the purpose of purchasing a property is there are a whole bunch of really good reasons, but the most important, as I said, is to create that very important credit score. And the way you do that is once you arrive in the United States with your green card in your passport, you immediately have access to a social security number. If you've already had an investment property in the United States and you had a tenant paying your mortgage for you every month, once you plug your social security number into that credit history with the mortgage company and your bank account, you immediately and magically get a credit score. And that is your very first building block to build your credit score in the United States. So there are a lot of other reasons. Some people even purchase a property that they plan to live in for the first couple of months or years when they get to the United States to find their way. Other people keep it as an investment and keep tenants into it and keep the asset. Another very, very good reason to have an investment property is that the interest portion of your mortgage every month is tax deductible. You immediately have an address. You have a place to put your family if that's what you want. So there are a number of really good reasons in order to purchase a property. And of course, the property market right now in the United States is incredibly buoyant. We have a huge shortage of single family homes, condos, and so properties are getting top dollar right now. So this is a very good time to purchase a property in the United States. So let's move on to the next part of your decision making. Is once you arrive in the United States, a lot of things are going to be thrown at you and you're going to have to adapt real quickly, and you're going to have to get some further building blocks to put you on your pathway to success. The first one is getting a driver's license, which Leanne is going to speak about in a lot more detail as we get into her presentation, but very important that you get a driver's license as soon as you arrive. And what we do at this point is, prior to you coming, we will set you up with test test driver's license tests online so that you can learn the rules of the road here. You can learn exactly what's going to happen when you actually have to go in and do your driver's license. Most people are quite afraid of doing the driver's license in the United States, and it's really not that bad. A lot of countries have a much harder driver's license, but as long as you study the material that we give you and you prepare well, getting the actual driver's license is really not that difficult. So we assist you with that. So without a driver's license, you're going to have a real difficulty in having an ID. You can carry your passport around with you, but a driver's license in the United States is really your identity document. So if anybody wants to see who you are, if somebody stops you, if a policeman stops you and wants your identity, the first thing he's going to do is ask for your driver's license. So off you go the very first week you get here, and you make an appointment at the DMV, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles in your particular state, and you sit for your driver's license. Now you've got a piece of paper or a little card that you can use to identify yourself. The next thing you do, and hopefully on the same day, is you get on down to the nearest Social Security office and you introduce yourself and you show them your passport, you show them your green card visa, and you check with them that your Social Security number is in process. Most of the time, your attorney will set all of this in place for you so that by the time you arrive, you should get your Social Security card in the mail. Very importantly, that you have the security of knowing that your Social Security is on its way. Sometimes things get mislaid, they get delayed, and it's very important that you have a Social Security number in order to do many, many things, including purchase a vehicle and getting insurance, everything that Leanne is going to deal with today. So the driver's license and your Social Security number, two crucial pieces of your identity in the United States. And then I always counsel my clients into immediately starting to develop their personal and professional network. And by that, I mean, focus on the industry that you're interested in. If you're in banking, if you're in real estate, if you're in education, any particular industry that you're involved in, reach out to organizations, of which there are many across America, and get involved. Join them, join chambers of commerce, join organizations that support interests that you're involved in, but really reach out immediately. Don't stay in your little comfort zone at home and not reach out. Very important that you immediately start to replace the infrastructure that you had in your home country in America. And the sooner you start meeting people and reaching out and getting an infrastructure and a network around you, the better. So very important that you do that. Let's move on to our next slide. How do we have a successful life in America? I arrived all those years ago, 20 years ago, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and determined, as all immigrants are, to make a success of my life here. And happily, I can report that I did. But I made huge mistakes on the way and learned some very hard lessons. But living in America is challenging in the beginning. So you have to focus on building a very important credit score. You've already got the building blocks in place to get your basic score established, but how do you go about building that score and improving it? You want to get it up to an ultimate of 800 or 850, which is the highest that you can get in the United States, but that takes some work, and we can guide you into the building blocks of how to do that. One of which Leanne will talk about, and that's getting a car loan. You can pay, you can put down a deposit, but if you get a car loan, that's going to assist your credit score to be built really quickly. And there are a number of other things that we can help you with to build that score. Very important, you need to establish an income. There are very few people that are lucky enough to come to the United States and retire. They have enough funds, they have enough money, and they can really retire. But most people that come to the United States come here to earn. They come here either to start a new business or they come here to work. So we can assist you with establishing that income. We can help you redo your resume, for example, into an American resume. The rest of many parts of the world call it a CV or a curriculum vitae. We call it a resume, and it's very different to a CV around the world. So we assist you with redoing that resume into making it American. We can also assist you with purchasing a new business. We work with a wide variety of providers that are tested and true, and we advise you as to how to go about purchasing a new business and working with an attorney to do the due diligence for you, to check out the background of this business very carefully before you make any investment. So establishing your income and or setting up a new business, very important for a newcomer to the United States. And then, very importantly, interacting with Americans. Americans, in my opinion, are the friendliest, nicest, most helpful people on the planet. And I have only had incredible support from everybody in my city. Everybody across the United States that I've worked with is open and ready to help you. So the name of the game is, if you need to know anything or you want to know anything, ask, because they will come and they will help. And so remember that when you come to the United States, because it's very important to ask for help. People love helping you. So if you start the conversation by, I need your help, I don't know how to do this, they will be there in droves, and they'll be there to help you live your American dream and achieve your American dream. So let's talk about how you settle in on our next slide, and how to be happy in your new home. And many people that come to the United States don't speak English. And so a very important thing is to, if you don't have English as your first language, start learning English. Your children are going to learn it very quickly at school or at university or college, but you need to make every effort to learn American. It's incredibly difficult to live in a country where you don't speak the language. And I urge all my clients to immediately start attending. There are a number of second language programs all over the country. The local community colleges have second language programs. You can do online programs, but I really urge you to encourage your entire family to learn English. And in that way, you can then establish a circle of American friends. You can communicate with them. You can celebrate our holidays with them. You can volunteer with them. And all these things will help to improve your English as well. I was lucky enough to come as an English speaker, but I didn't speak American. And that was interesting, because if you come from an English speaking country, Americans speak American. They don't speak British English or Australian English or New Zealand English or South African English. They speak a very different language. So you need to learn the words that they use, and some of them are really hilarious. Obviously we all know about a boot and a bonnet being a trunk and a hood, but those are things that you can certainly learn by reaching out to people and volunteering and finding social engagement opportunities that suit your lifestyle. And there's so many organizations. There are volunteers, there are volunteering organizations in every possible aspect of life. So anything that you're interested in, whether it be animals or social issues or children or the arts, there is a wide variety of organizations that would love to have your support. So reach out to those organizations and you will meet fabulous people. Now we have a little gift for you. I worked with CMB to produce this wonderful guide, and it's a 12-page guide called Preparing Your Pathway to America. And basically it lists items that you should be focusing on in the 3 steps that I've just been through. Those 3 steps: before you get here, immediately when you arrive, and while you live here, and how you actually proceed with your life here. So if you scan this QR code with your mobile phone right now, it'll take you to my website, which will request that you fill out a couple of bits of information for us, and we will happily send you a link to page through electronically our guide that we have put together with CMB. So if you'd like more information, you can scan this QR code, or you can just go to our Pathway USA website, which is pathwayusa.co.za or pathwayusa.co.uk, or we've even got one for the Turkey market, pathwayusa.biz.tr. So you could find our guide on any of our websites, and we'd be happy to send it to you to assist you in your planning. So I think that concludes my section.
Well, it does, with one exception. It's how to get hold of you. And you've scanned to the website for your helpful guide. Now, this is a way to contact Diane. This is the mailing, a postal address, and the business phone number. And again, she has the pathwayusa.co.za. That's the website. and info@pathwayusa.co.za. That is a way to get hold of her to get some more information. And if
We are
you
on, yeah,
go
we
ahead.
are
I'm
on
sorry,
WhatsApp.
Diane.
We are on WhatsApp. We are very active on social media. You can contact us through our Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, or you could just simply email us. We'd be happy to answer your questions and discuss our services with you. We have various services, as I mentioned, some of them opening a bank account, for planning a look, see, and decide trip, which is otherwise known as an LSD trip, with which people smile at. But that is a very important piece that we can do, and we can even do that virtually with you. We have done very successful look, see, and decide trips with clients, briefing them on the city that they're going to be moving to and items that they should be looking out for. So we'd be happy to assist you. Thank you so much, Kai. Back to you.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for sharing your expertise and being with us here today. And I always learn something from you. And you talked about parts of a motor car, and that's another thing. You know, we call them cars or automobiles, and motor car is a you know, on the bonnet, which is the hood, and then the trunk. It always amazes me that you know, there's this exchange that we have even today on the webinar or any of the webinars. We learn so much from one another. And your point of, you know, connecting with Americans, most Americans are very, very helpful, and it's a great way to learn in a very little, no risk and no judgment zone, if you will, because people want to be so helpful, and it's just a great way, especially if you volunteer. That's another good plan that you've recommended, and organizations desperately need volunteers that are wanting to be helpful and to move their organization forward. And it's a terrific way to pick up a new skill, pick up a new friend. And so it's a very good pointer that you've shared today.
Well, I've got one more just to add quickly, is that I didn't mention places of worship. This is a wonderful place to make friends, whatever your religion is or whatever religion you practice. Very good place to start is to attend a service at your place of worship, and that is an incredible way to plug yourself in instantaneously. It'll make you feel at home. You'll be very welcome, and I urge you to do that when you get to the United States.
Thank you. And we'll come back and talk to Diane, I'm sure, with a Q&A. Just a reminder, if you've got some questions, go ahead and use the Q&A link down at the bottom of the screen. Enter your questions, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. Reminder, if it's a specific question about a case that's specific to you or specific to an instance, we may not be able to get to those online. But we'll take and reach out to you after the event and see if we can't get some answers to your specific questions. But that leads us to our featured guest here today, Leanne Shattuck, who is the car chick, and she knows about purchasing, owning, America's car culture. She's going to share with us her expertise, and there's a lot of it. She has a great history and a great talent for sharing. She's on webinars. She's a featured writer, a featured guest on TV shows. And Leanne, thank you very much for being here today. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Kai. I really appreciate you inviting me to join you. And, you know, America we're a country of immigrants. But for me personally, I've always had a very special place in my heart for immigrants. I've known Diane for, gosh, Diane, how long has it been? 15 years. We've known each other. And my mother has been working in refugee resettlement for most of her professional career, and she's helped thousands of refugees get started in the United States. And they come over with literally the clothes on their back, and being able to see them build an American dream for themselves has really been very heartwarming to me. So, you know, anytime someone from another country chooses to make America their home, they bring with them their unique culture and ideas and just a spirit that enriches all of our lives. So I hope all of you in the audience today will get an opportunity to come here and make the United States your home. You'll be very, very welcome here. Well, a little bit about me. I've just loved cars my whole life. My father started teaching me about cars and teaching me advanced driving skills when I was probably too young to be learning them, but it definitely gave me a passion for cars, and I've been racing cars for nearly 30 years, and it's just become a passion of mine to help other people learn about cars. because even though America, we do love our cars here, car culture is huge. Even most people who were born here don't always like the process of having to buy a car. It can be a little bit frustrating. It can be a little bit overwhelming. And the way you go about buying a car here, it's definitely has its challenges. And so that's why I started my car buying service. And yes, our joke is it's a car buying service for women and smart men, but about half my clients have been men from the beginning. So it's not just that women dislike the process, a lot of men do too. So if you're one of those, don't feel bad. Why don't we go into the first slide and we'll get into talking about why you even need a car in the United States. With very few exceptions, if you live in a city, maybe like New York City, if you're actually in the city, or if you're in the city of Chicago, those cities have good public transportation. But for the most part in America, everything here is really, really big and spread out. And we have very limited public transportation in comparison to other countries in the world, simply because of the vastness of the land here. And so having a car here really is a necessity. It's not a luxury. If you don't have a car, it's going to be much, much more difficult for you to get around. It will take you, 10 times as long to get anywhere, simply because we just don't have public transportation just outside of everyone's door. So we do have buses, we do have trains. Some cities have subways or elevated train systems that help you get around within the cities. But for the most part, if you want to get out and explore, even for me, if I just want to go to the grocery store and buy food, I have to get in my car and do that. I could walk, but it wouldn't be that easy. So having a car here is absolutely critical. And the good side is that gas prices here are much, much lower than in most places in the world. So it's not going to cost you quite as much to own a vehicle in the United States than it might in your home country. But as I said, buying a car from a car dealership can be a very daunting and intimidating process. So going through an automotive expert like me, and unfortunately I don't have a lot of competition. There's not a lot of people who do what I do. I kind of invented this business model. So, but the good news is I do have a lot of resources to help people. So why don't we talk about why it's challenging to buy a car in the United States? Let me tell you a little bit about how the automotive industry is structured here in America. We have different ways that you can buy a car, majority of which is through a car dealer. We have different kinds of car dealerships. New car dealers are related to the manufacturer. So it will be a Toyota dealership or a Mercedes dealership or a Ford dealership. These dealerships, while they're privately owned by people in the United States, they have a franchise relationship with the car manufacturer, and they are the only ones who are allowed to sell that particular brand of new car. Now, the new car dealers also sell used cars on their lots, and they're not limited to their particular brand. They can sell any type of used car on their lots, so they will have both new and used cars. But we also have independent used car dealerships. Everything from what I call big box stores that are national chains down to just little small dealerships that have maybe 30 cars on their lot that are owned by a small family. So a huge, huge variety. And some of the dealerships are really good to work with and are good, honest dealerships that really are just trying to help you get a car. And unfortunately, there are some that are a little more interested in making their money and will take advantage of people who do not know the ins and outs of buying a car and may be more vulnerable, whether that's people who just don't know a lot about cars, whether it's people who are new to the United States and don't know a lot about the process. Unfortunately, you can get yourself in trouble buying a car. You can lose money, or you can buy a car that's not in good shape. We call them a lemon here. That's one of our American terms for a car that's really, really bad and breaks down on you all the time. We call them lemons, and you don't want to buy one of those. So learning those ins and outs can be a bit of a challenge for people. But there's a lot of dealerships to choose from here in the Charlotte area where Diane and I live. You know, there's probably 500 or 600 different kinds of car dealerships around our area. So there's a lot of choices out there. One of the exceptions to the kind of traditional new car dealership model is Tesla. They have dealerships, but they're not independently owned. They're owned by the Tesla company, by Elon Musk and his team. So they're a little bit different. And you just go onto their website and order the car that you want, and 3 months later it shows up. But that is a very unique model that the other manufacturers have not gotten on board with. So you can also buy a used car from just a private individual. We're allowed to, we're tired of our car, we can just sell it to somebody else. But you don't have protections under the law when you do that. And you have to do your own paperwork with the Department of Motor Vehicles to register that car and pay the taxes and fees on it. And that's something that most people who were born here don't know how to do. So I do not recommend that when you come to the United States that you do that right off the bat. We'll get you working with a car dealership to find you a proper car. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Before you get ready to go out and buy a vehicle, there's some things that you need to do ahead of time. As Diane said, you need to plan and prepare. You will probably need to have at least a 20% down payment in cash. And part of that is because your credit score, if you've started building a US credit score, will still be new. One of the things that people look at here, the banks look at here, if they want to loan you money, if they feel comfortable saying, yes, I'm willing to loan this person money, is they look at your history. It's not just the score itself. They want to see how long has this person been paying their bills on time. That's basically what they want to know. The more money that you can put down in cash on that car, the easier it will be to get that loan. And I'll talk a little bit later, a little bit more about getting a car loan and how you finance a vehicle. But prepare to have, at least several $1,000s in cash to put as your down payment on that car. You will have to have a valid US driver's license to register. Most states and the Department of Motor Vehicles that controls the license plates on the cars, registering the car, getting you the title to the car. Each state has their own Department of Motor Vehicles, and they all have slightly different rules, but they all require you to have a US driver's license in order to register that car, unless you're here just for a short time on business. If you are living in the United States, they want you to have that valid US driver's license. And as Diane said, that all-important Social Security number, which is the way our government uniquely identifies each of us, and it links to our credit score, it links to our financial records. So having that Social Security number, you'll need that as well. And you have to have insurance on vehicles in the United States. Each state requires you to have an insurance policy that will protect you and other people. And I'll talk a little bit later about the types of insurance policies that you're required to have, but you have to have insurance in order to buy a vehicle. And again, the better the US credit score you have and the longer that history, the better off you are, because the interest rates on those car loans will be lower the better your score and the longer you've had that credit history. All right, why don't we go on to the next slide, and we will talk about choosing the type of vehicle to buy here. We have a lot of choices of cars here in America. We have everything from little, small, tiny cars that many of you may be used to in your home countries, up to big, giant SUVs that you can get 8 or 9 people into sometimes. I call them buses. To, of course, the uniquely American pickup truck, which are very useful if you want to haul things around. So the first step is deciding, well, what type of vehicle do you need to support your new life here in America? How many children do you have, and how old are they? We do require in America that children under a certain age, and it varies by state, but usually around age 8 or younger, or a certain weight or height and under, we require that child to be in an approved child safety seat so that we can keep our kids safe while we're driving. So taking into account how big your family is and what the ages and sizes of the people in your family are will help you determine what type of vehicle you have. You know, do you just need a little car if it's just you or you and a spouse? Or do you need something large? If you've got, 2, 3, 4, 5 children, you're obviously going to need a larger vehicle. One of the words on here in type of vehicle is sedan. Many of you in other countries will know that as a saloon. We call the four-door cars sedans here. Obviously SUVs are the most popular vehicles in the United States, and many of the manufacturers are no longer going to sell sedans in America. They're focusing only on those SUVs because we like big cars here in America, and we have sometimes big families, and people like sitting higher up to be able to see everything that's going on the road around you. As Diane said, the requirements to get a driver's license in America are not necessarily as strict in other countries, and you may find that Americans may not be quite as skilled at driving as many of you are driving in your home countries. So we like to be able to see everybody on the road to help keep ourselves safe. Another thing to consider is the resale value. Some cars hold their value, and if you keep it for 3 years, or you keep it for 5 years, or even if you keep it for 10 years, it may sell for more money several years down the road when you get ready to sell it than other types of vehicles. The Asian vehicles, your Japanese cars, tend to hold their values very, very well here because they're known for being more reliable. So if reliability, the vehicle not going to cause you as many problems, be less expensive to maintain and repair over time is important to you, then it's important to look for vehicles that have a good history of being reliable vehicles. And the challenge is that's changing as cars are getting more and more technologically advanced. We have more computers in cars now than we did in the first space shuttle that we launched back in the early 80s when I was a kid. So that's affecting reliability. It's affecting the inventory right now. We have a shortage of new car inventory at this moment in the United States, and I imagine that's probably true around the world because of the global shortage of computer chips. We never thought that we wouldn't be able to build as many cars because we don't have enough computer chips, but that's what's been happening now because of the COVID-19 situation. But they'll get that worked out, so don't worry, we'll be able to find you a car when you get here. Another thing to consider are the weather conditions in your home state. Diane mentioned one of the things that you'll get to choose where you live will be based on the weather. We have places in the South that are warm and sunny and pretty most of the year. And we have some places where it gets ridiculously frigid cold in the winter, and there's lots and lots of snow, and you need a different type of vehicle to be able to navigate the roads when they're covered in ice and snow than you do down here where we live in the South, where if it snows one day every 3 years and the whole city just shuts down and we stay home. So that's one of the things you'll want to consider. Another thing that is different in the United States, we have very few cars left that have a manual transmission, the stick shift. That's all I drive. I only drive cars that have a manual transmission. To me, that's the only kind of true driving, but it's getting harder and harder to find those cars. Most vehicles here have an automatic transmission, so that may be something that's new to you and you might be surprised by when you go car shopping in the United States. But fortunately, there's a lot of great information to help you online. YouTube is great. People all over YouTube are doing videos and reviews about all the different cars and showing you what they have and giving you their not so humble opinion about that vehicle and what they like, what they don't like. So you can get some real world information about those cars. So do your homework. Even before you come to the United States, start looking at what vehicles are available in the US market and what type of car you might like to own. I've had fun helping some of Diane's clients that have come and moved here buy cars, and a couple of the gentlemen wanted to have pickup trucks in America, and so we got them a pickup truck and they've been having a lot of fun with it. So we go to the next slide, please. What to expect at a car dealership. That's changed a little bit recently, obviously, with the pandemic, but for the most part, our car dealerships are physical locations. It's a big building with lots and lots of cars to choose from, and there will be several dealerships for the same make. Let's just assume for a minute that you're interested in buying a brand new car. Each major city may have, 5 or 6 different Ford dealerships, 4 or 5 different Toyota dealerships, 2 or 3 BMW dealerships. There are lots to choose from, and they all compete against each other. They're independent businesses, and you can use that to your advantage in negotiating. But typically you will go to the car dealership to see the car and to test drive the car, and a car salesperson will greet you at the door and ask you what you are looking for today, how they can help you today. And some car salespeople are pushier than others. They want to make that sale right then and there, so they can be a little pushy. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like about buying a car here, is that the salespeople get very, very pushy. But that's something that I can help you with. But you want to have that person who knows the vehicle show it to you, show you all the features, take you out on a test drive, let you drive it around. Something that's different here in the United States is our test drives are very short. They'll take you out on a set route in the area to drive on regular city streets. They may take you on the interstate so you can drive at higher speeds, really feel what the car can do. But it usually only lasts about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and that's it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't come back again another day and test drive it again. Sometimes if you're very serious, they may let you take the car home with you overnight for 24 hours and then bring it back. That way you can make sure it fits in your garage. You can drive it around your neighborhood, see how you like it. Some will let you do that, but your initial test drive will only be about 15 or 20 minutes. I recommend to people that you do not try to purchase the vehicle the same day you test drive it. The car salesperson wants you to do that. They want to make the sale right now while you're excited. But I recommend that you take your time. This is a process. That way you can shop around and negotiate with multiple dealers for the same type of car. They compete against each other, and by negotiating with 2 or 3 or 4 dealerships for the same type of car, you'll get a better price and you'll learn more about how the dealers work. It's not just about the price of the car that you're buying. There are other fees and taxes associated with a car purchase. So the dealers will all charge a certain amount of fees. Many of them call it a documentation fee or an admin fee, and that's just extra money that they charge you to process that paperwork with your state Department of Motor Vehicles. So you don't have to do that. This is a very good thing. You do not want to do that paperwork. It's not fun, but the dealership will handle all of that for you. But that fee is something that they charge to all customers. That's not negotiable. If they charge it to one customer, by law, they have to charge the same fee to everyone. Now, sometimes the dealers will add other fees on there that are negotiable. They may try to add what they call a protection package with window tint or some protection for the exterior of the car. Sometimes you don't want these things and you can tell them you're not going to pay for it. So that may be something that is negotiable. But something that is definitely not negotiable are the taxes. Each state where you register the car, that'll be your home state where you live, where your permanent residence is, charges a tax. It's like a sales tax, but it's usually a different percentage of the vehicle sales price. And that can vary by state. In North Carolina, we have a fairly low tax rate. It's 3% of the price of the vehicle. In places like New York and California, it's much more expensive. It can be 10, 11, even 12% of the price of the vehicle. So be sure you know before you start car shopping what the tax rate is where you live. Sometimes it's a single rate across the whole state. Sometimes the individual city that you live in may charge an extra percent on top of that. So know what the total tax rate you will have to pay on that car before you start shopping, so that you can factor that amount of money into your overall budget. And the dealership will do all the paperwork with you. There'll be a lot of different documents that you'll need to sign. Read it all first. And again, each state is a little bit different in their laws, but for the most part, the process is very, very similar from state to state when you buy a car. One other tax that you may have to pay, depending on what state you live in, is a personal property tax. Some states charge that tax on things like cars, boats, any large pieces of personal property, not including your house. That's real estate taxes, and that's different. But if you have a car or a boat or a recreational vehicle of some sort, they will charge you a separate tax every year called personal property tax. And you have to pay that every year. But every year it usually goes down and is less and less as the value of that asset depreciates. But that's something that you may need to factor in depending on what state you live in. So let's talk a little bit about financing. If we could go to the next slide, please. I'm going to take a sip of my drink. Okay. Diane talked earlier about one way to help build that all-important US credit score is by getting an auto loan. And unfortunately, the automotive industry doesn't have the same type of program that Diane knows about for buying you a house, for being able to get a mortgage for foreign nationals. It doesn't work that way with cars. And so there are different loan programs, and different banks are more flexible with people who are new to the United States or young people. And they may have grown up here, but most people do not start building that credit score until they get older. They become an adult and they get their own bank account and they get their own credit cards and start building their own financial life separate from their parents. So, young people might not have a credit score built up. So there are certain programs for first-time car buyers that can help keep that interest rate lower. That's going to be the biggest difference with having a good US credit score with a decent history. Those interest rates will be much, much lower than they will be for people that do not have a credit score yet, or for people that their credit score used to be good, but then became bad because of things that happened to them if they weren't able to pay their bills or they made some poor decisions. So there are loans to help different people, but the difference in the interest rate can be paying, 1 to 2% if you qualify for special rates versus paying 20 or 30% for people that have very bad credit or no credit. So that's why building that credit score is so important. But the higher the amount of cash that you put down on the car, so let's say you're buying a car that costs $40,000. If you put $10,000 in cash towards that and you get a $30,000 loan, that's 25% of the entire value of the car. The bank thinks that is a much lower risk to them, and they may give you a lower interest rate as a result. So depending on which bank you work with, and the car dealers, they help you find the financing as well. You can go to your own bank and ask them for car rates. And if you already have your bank accounts with them, they may be able to give you a car loan at a good rate. But the dealers also have relationships with multiple banks and different types of banks so that they can find financing for different types of customers with different types of credit histories. So they can shop that financing for you as well. Sometimes the manufacturers themselves, they have their own bank. So Ford has its own bank, Ford Motor Credit. Toyota has Toyota Finance. They offer loans to people, and sometimes they'll have very special interest rates. Sometimes they'll have a 0 interest rate. It's like, hey, free money to help you buy a car if you pay it off. And you usually have to have a very, very good credit score to qualify for those. But that's something that you could potentially look forward to, maybe not with your first car purchase here, but a few years down the road when you've built that good credit score, you may qualify for those very special or 0% rates. So that's great. One thing that we have here in the US is that you can lease a car. And leasing is a little different than buying the car. Leasing the car, you say, I only want to use this car for 3 years. And they will tell you how many miles you're allowed to drive that car. Remember, we work in miles here, not kilometers, so I have to do a little bit of translation. But for a lease, you say, okay, I will keep the car for 3 years and I will put no more than 36,000 miles on it in that 3-year period. Then you make monthly payments on that car just for those 3 years. And it's a lower payment than if you were to purchase the car and finance the whole thing. But at that end of that 3 years, you have to give the car back. And if you drove more than the 36,000 miles, they charge you a lot of money for each additional mile. So leasing can get a lot of people into trouble. And for people who are new to the United States, you're just establishing your life here. You don't know how many miles you're going to drive every year. Most of the people who have lived here their whole lives don't know how many miles they drive every year and get themselves in trouble leasing. So I recommend to new immigrants, buy the car, don't lease the car, because you don't want to have to worry about that mileage. You want to be able to drive and go explore this beautiful country and get to know your new home. The dealership may try to talk you into leasing to get you a lower monthly payment if they think that's important to you, but just tell them no. You definitely want to buy a car when you get here so that you will own it and you can drive it as many miles as you want to explore your new home. All right, can you go to the next slide, please? Do you want to buy a new car or a used car? You have that choice here. There's several things that you want to consider. Many cases, if you buy a car that is only 1 or 2 or 3 years old, you can save a lot of money because the car, that asset depreciates, and most of that depreciation may happen in those first few years. So depending on the type of car that you want to buy, you may look at a new one and see that it's $40,000, but you can buy one that's only 2 years old and has maybe 20 or 30,000 miles on it, and you might be able to buy it for $30,000. So it may be worth it to you to save some of that money and buy one that is used. Now, buying a used car comes with some trade-offs. You know, somebody else has already driven it and it may have some wear and tear. It's not going to be perfect. There may be a few scratches or chips in the paint. There may be some wear on the seats. But most importantly, you want to find a used car that has been well maintained. The person has had the oil change. They've had all the fluids changed. They've taken good care of that car. And that's the risk of buying a used car. Was it well taken care of, well maintained by that first owner? So that's something a lot of people say, I don't want to worry about that. I'm just going to get a brand new car right off the showroom floor, 0 miles, get the exact color that you want, get all of the features that you want. We call them bells and whistles here. That's all the fun features of the car, the sunroof, the heated seats, all we call those bells and whistles. So there's your American car term for the day. But if, you know, a new car, obviously you're going to, you know, pay a higher price for, but sometimes it can actually be easier to get a loan for a new car when you are a first-time car buyer because of some of the special programs that some of the banks have. So that's just something to consider when you're weighing this decision. But if you do want to look for a used car, maybe you need 2 cars because your family is going to be doing different things. Most people in America that have families, we have multiple cars. We don't share well with each other within our families because everybody wants to do their own thing. They go to their job, the kids go to school, they go see their friends, they go to their sporting programs. So even teenagers who are old enough to drive here, very often, if their families can afford it, they'll have their own car. So you may want to buy a used car for additional family members. We have cars here that are called certified pre-owned. They're used. We like to say pre-owned because it sounds better. But these certified cars, what certified means is you would buy one from the new car dealer. So if you're looking at a certified pre-owned Toyota, you would go to the Toyota dealership because they're the only ones that are allowed to sell it certified pre-owned, because that means that the car is still pretty new. It might be 3 years old, it might be 4 years old, it might be 2 years old. It has fairly low miles on it, and it has passed a detailed inspection process so that the manufacturer says, yes, this car is in good condition, and they feel comfortable putting an additional warranty on the car. We have warranties in the United States. We like to protect ourselves against problems. So when you buy a new car, it will come with a warranty for a certain period of time or a certain number of miles that you put on the car. And that says that the manufacturer says this car will be free of defects. It won't break down on you as long as you take care of it within this time period. And if it does, we will fix it for you. And so with a used car, you may not get that warranty, but when they can certify it through the manufacturer, it will have a warranty that is backed by the car manufacturer themselves for a certain period of time. So that can be a good option for saving money on a used car, but not having as much risk as with buying a regular used car. We also are getting more and more electric vehicles in the United States. And Tesla, of course, is one of the big brands, a little more expensive. Other manufacturers have made a commitment to producing and developing more and more electric vehicles. But one of the reasons that electric vehicles have not sold as well and as quickly in the United States as in other countries so far, again, is because everything is spread out here. Everything is really big, and we do not yet have the infrastructure for all the recharging stations that we would need here. So if you choose to live in one of our bigger cities, and you tend to stay or drive that car just within that city, and you can plug the car in to recharge at night at your home, or you can find a recharging station, public station in the city to recharge it, then an electric vehicle might be a good choice. But you will be limited because you can only drive a certain number of miles before that car runs out of electricity and you have to plug it back in. And we just don't have a lot of those recharging stations here. So with an electric car, you won't be able to do the exploring that you may want to do. So that's why electric cars are still not as popular here, and there's very few of them, and they're still very, very expensive. So that may not be the car that you would want to buy as your first vehicle here. You may want to get that gas or petrol powered vehicle. And we do have hybrids that are the best of both worlds, but that's something to consider. How much driving are you going to want to do and need to do? And you probably won't know that until you have been here for a little while and started doing some of that exploring and get into a rhythm of your lifestyle here. So I don't recommend starting out with an electric car, but it might be something that you choose to get further down the line. All right, next slide, we will talk about a little bit about insurance. I'm going to give you a disclaimer. I am not an insurance agent. I'm not even an expert in insurance. So that could be, I'm sure that's a whole nother webinar topic for Kai and his team to do. But for car insurance in the United States, if you've never had a driver's license here, you may have many years of experience driving in your home country, and you're probably a better driver than most of the people here as a result of the skills that you've built driving in your country. But insurance companies here, unfortunately, don't care. They just look at your driving history in the United States. And when you have none, they look at you just like they look at our teenagers here. You are a 16-year-old boy in their eyes and a very high risk. So your insurance rates, at least for the first few years, are probably going to be very, very high. They could be as high as your monthly car payment. So that's something that you need to factor into your budget when looking for a car. And certain types of vehicles are more expensive to insure than other types of vehicles. So that big SUV will have a higher insurance rate than a small little sedan or hatchback car. So that's something to factor in. But if you have more than one driver in your household and you all have your insurance together, you can get multiple driver discounts. I also recommend, because Diane will have already helped you get insurance on your home, that same insurance company will very likely have car insurance. So if you get your car insurance and your home insurance through the same company, you will often get discounted rates. So there are definitely advantages to do that. And that's something that Diane or whoever is helping you in the United States get insurance can help you do that. But it is required to have insurance to drive a car in the United States. There's a couple of different kinds of insurance. The kind that is required by law is called liability insurance. And that's the insurance that protects you if you hit someone, if you get into a motor vehicle accident and it's your fault, you are liable. That's again a legal term. The insurance will pay if you have hurt someone else, if that other person is injured. So that's why it's required to have that liability insurance in order to drive a vehicle in the United States. There's also insurance that protects you from collision. So that protects the car. Liability protects the people. The collision protects the car. So if you do get into a car crash, that collision insurance will help pay to repair your vehicle and to repair other people's vehicles that may have been involved in that accident. So that insurance is only required if you have a loan for the car. And that's the bank that requires it to protect the asset that they technically own, that you are still making payments on. Until you pay off the entire loan, the bank usually holds on to that title and they get to tell you, yes, you have to have insurance on this car because it's still our asset and we need that asset protected. So just be prepared to have full insurance, liability, and collision in order to buy a car in the United States. Many different factors will affect the cost of that insurance, as I said, but the biggest is simply the fact that you're a new driver in the eyes of the insurance company. And depending on the type of vehicle that you decide to buy, your insurance is just going to be expensive for those first few years. But those rates will go down as long as you have a clean driving history. You don't get any accidents. You don't get any speeding tickets. Speeding tickets will kill your insurance. I know this personally. So this is why it's important to obey all the traffic laws in the United States. So that's a good segue into our next slide. Some safety tips. Seat belts are required in the United States while you are driving. So everybody in the car, everybody in the front seat, everybody in the back seat, everyone needs to be wearing that seat belt at all times when you're in that car. And if the police officer pulls you over and sees you are not wearing that seat belt, they will fine you a lot of money, because we know that seat belts help save lives and we want everybody to be safe. So always wear that seat belt. And as I said earlier, children, if they are young children, they have to be in a car safety seat. And that's something that, Diane helps you come here. She can help you with. If you go to your local fire department, they will help you put the seat in the car. They will teach you how to secure it properly in the car. They have some great safety seminars about car seats for children. So there's a lot of really good information out there to help you if you need car seats for your young children. If the weather is less than sunny and beautiful, which happens, we've got a beautiful picture of snow here. If you live in a state that has cold, snowy winters, driving in that weather will be very different, and you'll need to have special tires for the car that can handle that snow. And you have to drive very, very carefully because the roads will be very slippery, especially if you're not used to driving in that type of weather in your home country. The reason here in Charlotte that when it snows once every few years, everybody just stays home because nobody knows how to drive in snow down here. And we don't have the tires for it. We don't have the equipment to help clear our roads. So we just stay home for 3 days and then it melts and we're fine. But many states it stays cold and snowy. I grew up in Wisconsin. That's a very, very northern state, and it's cold and snowy for much of the year. And as I said, follow the traffic laws. You have to take a test to prove that you know the traffic laws in your state in order to get that driver's license. Adhere to those laws. If you break those traffic laws and the police officer gives you a ticket, not only do you have to pay a lot of money for that ticket, but we have on our driver's license something called points. You start out with a certain number of points, and when you break the law, you start to lose points. And if you lose all your points, they take your driver's license away from you for a certain period of time. And breaking those laws also makes your insurance rates go up and up and up. So it's very important to adhere to the traffic laws and always drive safely, especially driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That there is no tolerance for that here, and you can lose your license the first time. So do not ever drink and drive ever in the United States. It could cause you a lot of problems and will kill your insurance, and you could lose your driver's license. All right, let's talk about taking care of your vehicle. Just like in your home country, your cars have to be maintained to last you a long time. And there are several different places that you can take your vehicle to a qualified mechanic to work on your car. All of the new car dealerships have repair facilities. They have a service shop, and their technicians are trained to work on that type of car. My recommendation to people that buy a new car is, at least for the first few years, while that car is under protection of the manufacturer's warranty, just take it to the dealership, because they will know how to work on your car. And if they do find a problem that is covered by that warranty, they can have that fixed for you at no cost to you. So the dealerships are a great place to take your car. You pay a little more money to have them maintain your car, but it can be worth it when that car is still very new. There's also tons of independently owned shops. Some of them work on all types of cars. Some of them are specialty shops that only work on, they may only work on Hondas. They may only work on Toyotas. They may be brand specific. They may work only on the German cars, because the German cars are a little more complicated. They have special equipment that they need to talk to those cars and work on them. So, but you have a lot of choices, but finding a good, trustworthy mechanic can be a big challenge as well. I married mine. I found a really good mechanic and I married him because I didn't want him to get away. So, but you can take your car to the dealership. You can take your car to an independent shop. What you should not try to do is work on the car yourself. Cars today are very, very complicated. As I said, they have more computer chips in them, and it takes a type of equipment to work on them that you just are not going to have as a private citizen. And we have some environmental laws that may prevent you from doing a lot of work on your car because you do not have a way to dispose of the chemicals safely. So do not try to work on your own car. Take it to a qualified mechanic and follow the schedule that is defined in the owner's manual of your car. It will tell you how often your car needs to have an oil change, needs to have the transmission fluid change, because automatic transmissions have a fluid that needs to be changed periodically. That schedule, if you follow that schedule, it will help keep your car in good shape. And it's also required to maintain that warranty that I talked about. So always take your car to a qualified shop with qualified mechanics, and it will last you. All right, last slide is just my contact information. I know I've thrown a lot of information at you today, and I do not expect you to remember most of it. But the good news is you can always go back to the YouTube channel that Kai mentioned and rewatch this video. And on my website, thecarchick.com, I have blog articles. I have a podcast called The Straight Shift because I drive a straight shift and I will always give you straight up honest information. So there's about 75 or so podcasts with lots of different car related topics that can help you learn about buying, selling, and maintaining your car in the United States. And I also have a YouTube channel, Car Chick TV. All of that you can get to from my website. And I'm passionate about helping people. I do own a car buying service where I can help you buy the car and do all of the complicated work for you, starting with helping you pick the right car for you based on what your life is going to be like here in America and what your personality is and how much money you want to spend. And then I'll handle all the negotiating for you with the dealership, make sure they get the paperwork right. And really all you have to do is be really excited and sign some papers and take the keys to your new car, help you find the financing and everything. So it really makes it easy. And it's not just for women, I help men too. So I do that across the entire United States. I have clients from New York all the way over to California. So if you find yourself, when you finally get to move to the United States, and you find yourself in need of a car, you're welcome to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. And I think, Kai, are we going to open up to questions?
Well, not quite yet, because I've got a little story. I was doing a little homework on my own, and I found out, Leanne, that during COVID-19, there has been some impact to families that they couldn't expect, nor could they afford, and that's been globally. And I know that you've started a GoFundMe, and that GoFundMe was a way to raise up to $5,000, I think was the number, and you're on your way to reaching that, but because you use a little more help. But the GoFundMe page was basically because you found that some of the social agencies weren't addressing some of the needs that the families had, so you took it upon yourself to raise some money and to put that money in a pool so that the families could have access to that. And I think that exactly typifies, number one, the type of person that you are, and it says a lot about you taking the action behind the need. And secondarily, it really goes to the point of what Diane said about how helpful Americans are. And so I wanted to brag on you a little bit about you taking that extra step. And so can you share a little bit of that experience and what you saw was the need and why you stepped in?
Yeah, sure, Kai. I decided to do that last fall. Um, you know, Christmas in America is a season, and obviously, not all religions celebrate it, and I don't personally celebrate Christmas, but just kind of the spirit of giving is something that is very important to most Americans. And I had seen how many people, just within my little community here, my little town of Fort Mill, where I live in South Carolina, so many people, they live what we call paycheck to paycheck. Their living expenses are expensive, and their job barely covers all of that, and they don't necessarily have the depth of savings that some of us are fortunate to have. And I just saw how many people were at risk of losing their homes, being evicted, basically thrown out on the street. And it wasn't their fault. Their job simply went away because of the pandemic and the lockdowns. And so they lost their job, they lost their income, they lost their ability to pay for their apartment or their home or their car. And, so for me, I was very fortunate last year. My business increased during the pandemic because my business model is virtual, and it's always been designed to keep people out of car dealerships. So it just was by design. Never really thought about pandemic when I was building my business model, but hey, it worked. So I was, my family was very, very fortunate that we had a good financial position last year, but not everybody did. So I decided, instead of, buying presents for family members for the holidays, I wanted to put some money towards helping someone else to maybe keep them in their home so that they didn't get thrown out onto the street. And, we have a lot of social programs, but there was just not enough to keep up with what was going on. And unfortunately, with, some of the things that were happening in our administration previously, those programs were not being supported. So I just thought, okay, well, maybe if I can get some other people to chip in, maybe I can help one family. And my goal is to pay off all of their past due bills, all of them that they had, their rent, their car, their electric bill, their water bill, whatever, so that they could start the new year fresh. And, maybe that would be enough to stop them from being evicted and just give them a fresh start and take that stress off of them for the holidays. And I was not prepared for the amount of generosity and love and support from people that I know in my audience. And we ended up raising almost $18,000 and we were able to pay off all of the past due bills for 3 families in our community. And 3 families got to stay in their homes. They did not get evicted. Their children, stayed in school. They didn't lose their car because, as I said, you have to have a car here. And if you don't have a car, it's really hard to get and keep a job. So how are these people supposed to get new jobs if they lost their car and they lost their home? So that's, what we did. And I'm very grateful to everyone, all my friends and neighbors in my community for chipping in and just showing that generosity of the American spirit of helping. And it was very, very rewarding to see these families be able to not have that stress of those bills hanging over their head and maybe losing their home in the middle of a pandemic. So that's what we did.
Terrific. Great story. Thank you for doing that. Certainly from my side, that again says a lot about you, and it really is the American spirit, and we can't indicate enough just how important that entire spirit permeates the society, and wanting to help people and stepping out of our path to be helpful. And you typified that in that one example. So thank you for sharing that. So now that takes us to the Q&A, and Andrew has already, I've seen there have been some questions that have come in. If you have some questions that you haven't given to us yet or haven't asked, be sure to use the Q&A segment down at the bottom of your screen. Just pop that in, type in the question that you may have, and use the Q&A function, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. Andrew?
Thank you, Kai. So this is probably one of the most prominent questions that I've seen. We've got a couple of, how much driving will I have to do in the U.S. and will I have to use a car every day?
You will most likely need to use a car every single day. As I said, unless you live in, downtown in one of these giant cities like we've got here. Is that Chicago? That city looks like Chicago. I think I see the Sears Tower and the Hoover Tower there. I'm getting pretty good at identifying my American cities by aerial photos. But unless you live in downtown in one of these big cities that has a really extensive public transportation, you will need a car. So I do know a lot of people that do live in these big cities, and they've gone their whole lives not having a car. I have a couple clients that I've worked with very recently that used to live in New York City, in Manhattan, and they moved out to California. And for the first time in their life, they needed a car. And so they were first-time car buyers, even though they had grown up in the United States, because they had lived in New York City, where everybody takes public transportation. And it's actually very, very expensive to own a car there. So most people that live in that city do not own cars. But that is the exception, not the rule. Everybody else is going to be doing a lot of driving. It really depends on where you live and where you work, what your daily commute is. And doing that in a car adds up. So the average American drives about 15,000 miles a year, which is quite a bit. So you won't know your exact situation until you get here, but you'll probably do more driving in the first few years if you want to get out there and explore. And I highly recommend it. We have a concept in America called the road trip, where you pack up your things, put your family in the car, get some snacks that may not be healthy for you, and just get out there on the road and drive and go see. We have so many national parks and just beaches and mountains and deserts, just so many different beautiful, beautiful places here. And most of us that have lived here our whole lives have only explored a fraction of this country. And that's just one of the joys of living in America, is the ability to just jump in your car and take that road trip with your family. So you'll probably be driving, you know, at least 12 to 15,000 miles a year when you get here.
Absolutely, Leanne. When I first came here, I dragged my small children to the four corners of the Southeast and took them to the beach and went to the Outer Banks and went to Chattanooga and went down to New Orleans and drove to Florida and went to the Keys. And it was a fun, fun time. And so I urge my clients and newcomers to the United States to get in their car and drive and see this beautiful country.
And that's the best way to do it, because, you know, I grew up and we traveled so much internationally. I had been to more foreign countries than I had states for a while. And, you know, yes, you can fly, you can get on an airplane and go anywhere here. And sometimes you may want to do that. You know, if you live, like Diane and I live in Charlotte on the East Coast, if you want to go out to California, it's obviously much faster to fly, because that road trip will take, you know, 5 days just to get out there. But if you do have the time and want to take the time to drive around the country instead of fly, that's really how you see the country. You'll get to see things that you would just never experience, because sometimes along the way there will be strange things. Like we have that giant water tower that's painted like a peach, you know, as you drive through South Carolina down to Georgia. We have weird landmarks here that you'll only find driving that can be really, really fun. I think one state somewhere has a giant ketchup bottle or something like that. I mean, it's crazy. We have weird stuff here, but it's really fun to see. And you really get an appreciation for the vastness of the land when you just get in your car and drive.
All right. So there's another question here about, can I prepare for my driver's license before I get to America?
Yes, absolutely. Diane, take that one.
I'll jump in here. Yes, absolutely. There is a lot of information online. Every state has an online presence with their DMV, their Department of Motor Vehicles. And what I do is I brief my clients very extensively about the process and what steps they need to take. And they can do all the studying of the rules and regulations that rule the road here. They can learn the signs, they can learn the words, because often the language is very different as well. Overseas, for some countries, talk about an island in the middle of a road. Here we talk about a median. And so there are new words to learn. And of course, there are a lot of rules of the road that are international, but a lot that are different. So yes, you can even do practice tests. Here in most DMVs in the United States, they give you a computer test. First of all, you walk in and you make an appointment. Then you will have your eyes tested. Do you wear glasses? Can you see properly? The next thing you'll do is you'll do a computer multi-choice test. And if you pass that, they will then take you out on the road. So you can do a lot of the preparation yourself online before you get here. And you can drive a little when you get here. If you've been driving on the wrong side of the road, on the left-hand side of the road, that many countries, you're definitely not going to tell the inspector that you've been used to driving on the wrong side of the road, because they're going to be real nervous when they get in the car with you. So don't say a word about that. Just jump in the car and drive competently, and you should be good to go.
We have left-hand drive here. And another thing that's different here is we have very few, most places in the world use what we call traffic circles. You might call it a roundabout. And we don't have many of those. We're starting to have a few, but not in your major intersections. So instead of, entering the roundabout and going around until you find what street you want to exit, we have traffic lights, and you have to make left-hand turns across traffic in many cases. That's a big difference for a lot of people when they come here. And even people that grown up here don't always do that well. So that's a skill that you'll need to learn, and you'll need to do that for your driver's test. I personally like roundabouts. I think they're a lot more fun.
So it looks like we've got, I'm sorry. Go
my Mini Cooper. I drive a little Mini Cooper. So my car does have a bonnet and a boot, but this is my computer mouse that looks exactly like my car. So I have fun driving on roundabouts.
Looks like we've got time for just a couple more questions, so we'll try to get these in here. Can I get a car with a down payment and finance the rest?
Yes. You absolutely should be able to do that without any problem. And depending on how long you've been building that US credit score, it'll be easier. If you have really good credit in America and a long credit history, you can finance 100% of the price of the car. You don't have to put any money down. But people who are new to America and don't have as long of a credit history or still working on building that score, they will want you to put some money down. But we definitely recommend that you finance at least a portion of the car, maybe 50% of it if you can. And that way, that paying off that car loan will help contribute to that credit score. And the way the banks look at your credit when they are deciding whether or not to give you a car loan, they look at the history of have you paid other car loans. They look at that more heavily than they look at have you paid your mortgage, have you paid your credit cards. So they like to see that automotive loan specific history, and then you can get lower and lower interest rates as you build that history. So you definitely want to finance at least a portion of the price of the car. Even if you have plenty of money and could pay the whole thing in cash, don't. Put some of it down in cash, but then pay the rest with a car loan to help build that history.
Perfect. So there's a question here. How do I decide what car is a good car to drive in America?
That's why my process is what it is, because that's a difficult decision, and that's a difficult decision for people who have grown up here, because there are so many choices. So it really depends on what your lifestyle is going to be like here, because a car is a tool. It's a tool to support your lifestyle. Yes, they are fun. They are also, a status symbol. That is very true here. But ultimately, it's a tool that needs to support your lifestyle. So as I said, so many Americans prefer SUVs now because they have a bigger family or they just want to sit up on the road. And we have giant SUVs that you can get your whole family and a few friends in. And we have little tiny ones that you really can't call an SUV, but they sit up higher than just a sedan. So there's lots and lots of choices. But getting something that is going to, especially for the first few years you're here and you may be doing more exploring, you want something that's going to be reliable. Believe it or not, we actually, in the United States, I personally recommend to a lot of my clients, if reliability is important, we tend to stick to the Asian brands. We stick to the Japanese cars. Toyota is still the most reliable brand globally. Hyundai and Kia from North Korea have started making really great cars here. They have a super long warranty, so they're great cars. If you want a pickup truck, then we're looking at American cars. So it really depends on what type of vehicle you need to support the lifestyle that you want to have here. So that's a big part of my service, because picking the right car is half the battle.
So there's one question that I want to make sure that we get in, and this isn't obviously going to be meant to be legal advice, but I think it's an important topic to at least give some insight on. What's one of the first things that someone should do if they get into an accident, a car accident, while driving in the United States?
Okay, again, not a lawyer, not giving legal advice here, but the first thing you do if you get into an accident is you call the police, because they will come out and they will talk to everybody, find out what happened. Obviously, if anyone has been injured, you call. We have here 911. So you dial on your phone 911, and that is our emergency number. And the person on the phone will ask you what your emergency is, and you will say, I've just been in a car accident. People may be injured, and they will send police. They may send the fire department, and they will send emergency paramedics. And so that way, number one is always to make sure that if anyone is injured, that they get medical attention right away. And then the police will fill out a report. And if someone is at fault for that accident, they may get a ticket for doing whatever they did to cause that accident to happen. But then you'll have the documentation for what happened, and your insurance company, depending on how everything unfolds, may need that police report. So if you get into a car accident, the first thing you do is dial 911, and they will send the appropriate people to help you and make sure that everybody's okay.
And what always amazed me, and it still amazes me after 20 years of being here, is how fast they come. They come fast.
They come fast.
I had a serious accident last year, and was lucky to have walked away with not too many injuries, but they were there in minutes. And I'm talking 3, 4, 5 minutes. They were on scene dealing with us, and it was incredible. So 911 is a lifesaver, literally, here in the United States. So never, ever hesitate to call 911.
And that's one thing that we're fortunate in the United States is that I know in many other countries, the police are not necessarily someone that you can trust, but here you can. Sure, we have some problems, but the police officers are here to protect and to serve, and they will take care of you.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to wrap up our Q&A. So thank you very much. Kai, some final words before we exit today?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you to our guests, Diane and Leanne. Certainly, thank you for sharing your expertise and shedding some light on life in America, what immigrants need to know about coming to America, how to be successful when they get here, and the car culture and buying a car and some of the intricacies with automobile purchases. Thank you to you both. And again, the 911, just as a bit of a trivia piece, in the UK it's 999, and I think in China it's 111, and some of the Asian countries. So for those of you who are from around the world, our 911 is you're familiar with an emergency line in your home country. Ours is the 911 number. But again, thank you to all of you for being here today. We will follow up with all of our registrants with some contact information on the material that's been presented here today. We'll also give you some information on how to contact our guests and to get to their websites, and also lead into the history of our library of different videos that we have on YouTube, so you can access that library and choose which one, and the information that we've shared previously on our various webinars. Again, a thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you to our guests. We look forward to seeing you again. If we can be of any help, be sure to reach out to CMB at www.cmbeb5visa, all one word, .com, and drop a note in our contact page, and we'll be glad to respond to those. We will respond to those around the clock, and so you get an answer right away. And if it's a question about our webinar, it'll be directed to me or to one of our investor relations managers, so that we can get you the information directly. Andrew, thank you very much for your skill, time, and talent, and thank you to our guests, and we hope to see you all again.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, and goodbye.